Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Points of Interest. We've got a great show for you today, and we've got a very, very special guest. And instead of our interview with Charlie Wood, we have in our studio, Captain Scott Strimple. So get ready for another episode. Let's get this thing off the ground. Exploring the people, places, and technology in the growing drone industry. This is the Points of Interest DroneCast. Hi, folks, and welcome back to Points of Interest. Again, as I said before, we've got a great show. Our normal co-host is not here today, but instead, we have a great co-host, actually in the co-pilot seat. Can I say that?
Absolutely.
It's Captain Scott Strimple. Scott, first of all, thank you for coming in here today. This is really an honor to have you. I've known Scott for a good number of years, and he has done everything from fly airplanes to run a video production business. And matter of fact, you're getting ready to do a big production on whales.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience with
Well, Gary,
drones.
thanks for having me. First of all, this is great. Been following I Fly Drones since your first episode.
Well, thank you.
Really enjoy it, and appreciate you having me on. So I started off basically as a kid flying radio control airplanes. So you can tell by the color of my hair and the lack of it that I wasn't a kid just recently. So it was a long time ago. Found myself growing up as a young man interested in aviation, became a pilot, full-scale pilot, manned aviation, still flew model aviation, model aircraft around. And today I'm captain for United Airlines 777.
The big birds, the really big birds.
It is a big bird, that's for sure. And then, and I'm one of these guys that doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up, right?
Sure.
So
We're all that
when
way.
I'm not sitting in the pointy end of the big jet, then I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm a drone guy, so I've kind of got my hands in a lot of areas.
Sure.
And as you alluded to, you know, we're starting production here soon, beginning of next year on a humpback whale documentary, feature doc type thing.
Right.
That we're looking forward to. A lot of drones in that are going to be used in that production.
Scott actually showed me a little clip that he shot with Air 3.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful
Air 3,
stuff. In Hawaii, were you for that shot?
That was
beautiful.
Hawaii, yeah.
Wow. So I got a couple questions for you. Of course, I've known you for a while, and I remember that you also ran a very successful video production business. You did weddings and all kinds of other things, commercials.
Yeah, we did weddings, we did documentaries, we did a number of corporate ID type films. Got hard to tell their stories, if you will.
So,
did that.
so what led you? I would imagine that business kind of led you to the drone world. Is that right?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The drone to me is just another term for what we used to call radio control aircraft.
Right.
It's just the next iteration of technology and whatnot. So I had been doing that for quite some time. We used to hang cameras. We'd strap our little Sony handy cams, duct tape them around the bottom of our radio control aircraft. Yeah. And then we'd take off and we'd film it and we'd watch it later.
Sure.
So we were doing that quite a number of years ago. Then, with the events of 9/11 and the uncertainty in the airline industry, my wife and I, Stephanie, started the Altair Video Productions, United Wedding Films, and so we started dragging cameras underneath helicopters, radio control helicopters, for things that.
Again, not for prop.
No, this is long before the drone became a thing. And so we got some pretty cool footage, establishing shots and things like that.
What years would that have been? Because you were way ahead of everybody.
2008.
Okay.
2007.
So that's one thing that I know about Scott is that he has always been on the tip of technology and doing stuff like that. Matter of fact, I remember I was doing the AV for a big fashion show, and you had this huge jib that you were running indoors. And again, you were always taking things to that next level, which I appreciate. Wow. So we knew a little bit about, so when did you get your first for-prop type of drone and get involved with that?
Great question. I don't recall the actual year, but it was probably 2010-ish time frame. Down at the local hobby store, walking in, looking for, I'm flying radio controlled jets and I'm looking for parts, and it's frustrating. They don't always have what you want in the more niche
Sure.
area of the hobby. So I've just decided to kill a little time in the store, and I'm walking around. I see this little thing about the size of my hand, and it's a blade something.
Right,
if you
right.
remember that.
Yeah.
I bought that, took it home, and went, this is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
that was the first one. This was probably a couple of years or so before DJI came out with the Phantom.
Phantom.
And then we started building. One of my business partners and good buddy, Dr. Klinke, Bob Klinke. I don't know if you know Bob Klinke.
Look at buddy, yeah.
But he and I started building these, these little multi-rotor, the flame wheel. If you remember that, the
No, I
DJI
don't.
flame wheel.
I don't. We have to find a picture of that and show.
Yeah, these were the beginnings, man.
Okay.
And using a KK board. There was no DJI.
Yeah. You were a pioneer. I mean,
like
holy
that,
cow.
so, yeah.
You were doing it before, you were drones before drones were cool. Well, let's take a look at, I had some other questions to ask you about. First of all, I don't know, now 7 or 8 years ago, I was in a classroom. You were teaching
7 years ago. Yeah. Today.
7 years
I
today?
saw it on Facebook.
Get out
7
of here.
years ago today.
That makes this really special in a
wild?
way.
Yeah.
But I took my 107, not the test, but the training program with you and the guys from Channel 12.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting. Are you still teaching 107?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Man.
Okay.
I got into that because, as you know, that came about in 2016, I think, August 29th of 2016. But prior to that, I had been involved with the ASTM, which is Standards and Measures Organization, and specifically the F-38 working group, which was the small unmanned aircraft working group. So we were tasked by the FAA to come up with standards for the
training.
What was going to be the small unmanned aircraft. Yeah, in many areas. I happened to be at the time I was just a work group chairperson, but I became the subcommittee chair subsequently after a while. But our task was to come up with some training and certification standards that ultimately the FAA decided not to use because of some lobbies from small companies like DJI, Amazon, Facebook, and who felt that this would create a price of entry into the drone world that would prohibit a lot of people and stunt the multi-billion-dollar industry. So the FAA put together Part 107, which some of the things.
Which was really already there, right? It was already in place for the small aircraft pilot.
It was being penned as we were doing this. In fact, some of the standards, some of the stuff in the standard found its way into that. But and ultimately, the standard was approved. It's a consensus-based organization, the ASTM, and that standard is actually, I believe, still in use today internationally. There are other organizations, corporate organizations, other countries that utilize that standard, even though the U.S. doesn't.
Sure. So tell me, what is your favorite drone to fly?
Well, it kind of depends on the mission, honestly. If I'm, if we're doing filmmaking, I'm a little partial to the Inspire 2 right now. I have not got my hands on an Inspire 3 at this point in time, but looking forward to that in the future. Kind of waiting to see how things shake out here in the DJI U.S. legal
and matter of fact, that's one of my questions for you, since we kind of already hit that topic. Tell me, what do you think about the bill and all of that?
Yeah, it's it's a double-edged sword. I guess without getting political, if you get political, it's hard not to. But I'm a big believer that at some point we only know what we know, if that certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
I'm going to have to go on record as saying, well, if our federal government claims they have evidence that the Chinese toy manufacturer known as DJI is in cahoots with the Chinese government and it's not in the best interest of the United States, then I guess ultimately, I'm not sure I can change that.
No.
But sadly, as you know, many DJI, 8 and 10 or 8.5 in every 10 drones is a DJI drone. And we have all of our first responders. People are they're using these things to save lives.
Right.
And so that will be the
I've talked to some first responder people who explained that, if it really came down to saving a life and all they had was DJI, they're going to put the drone up because that's the most important thing, is saving a life.
We'll take the critique.
We'll, ask for forgiveness later.
Right.
And the other things that I always see in this, and I don't want to get long into this, but, things like the Ring doorbell, the Apple phone, all of these things have the same capability of spying on us.
I agree.
That's the bottom line.
And there's, and I don't, we could go on and on like
Sure,
this all day long.
sure.
Two guys dishing about the drone
Oh,
world.
yeah.
But you know, there are politics involved, and you
Sure.
know, I love the Skydio drone. When Skydio left the consumer world and went another direction, I think that pretty much. Well, I don't want to say pretty much, but I think a large movement to stop DJI in the U.S. kind of went with that.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably always be able to fly them, my guess. Maybe not in sensitive infrastructure environments or government agencies, but
We did a report
as hobbyists.
last episode about a new drone that we looked at. It looks like an exact copy
Oh,
of
right.
DJI being
Yeah.
sold through Malaysia,
Yeah.
kind of getting around maybe the Chinese market
Yeah.
because Malaysia is one of our connected good governments we work with.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to see how that's going to wash out.
That was an interesting video. That I saw that clip as well.
Yeah,
I
so
was
we'll
like,
see. We'll see. All right, so tell me, what would be a highlight in your drone world that you've had so far?
A highlight, gosh. You know, I just feel blessed to be able to be an early adopter of this technology and to be able to influence, well, at least I hope I've influenced
influenced
thousands of
me.
people. So
Yeah.
and that's a tremendous reward. You know me well enough to know that, I mean, I just like helping people. I didn't get it. If I got into this for the money, I'd have done different things.
Sure.
I got into this because I sit in the pointy end of a jet airplane hauling people around, and I recognize immediately that we're going to be sharing the same kind of airspace with this robotics technology, and that technology is eons ahead of the regulatory structure in our country.
Sure.
And so what I felt like I wanted to do was to help educate people to the safety culture of manned aviation, and at least as they adopted the robotics technology from, I'm going to use the word Silicon Valley very loosely, but you know, that mindset of computerized things that fly that are computers,
Sure.
and no human being on board,
Sure.
that they would at least have a working knowledge of the other people they're sharing the airspace with. So that's what got me involved in it. And that's probably the biggest reward I've had. I've gotten to fly a couple drones for, teaching up at Maine Media Workshops. That's a pretty prestigious
Right.
establishment, and they had us set up their drone program and do that. And I've had,
And because you were early on, I remember when we were doing the classroom, you showed us some pictures where you'd gone all over the country helping shoot commercials and
Yep.
some really high-end
Yep.
stuff. So
and those were, like I mean, we got an Emmy for sports video for.
you have an Emmy?
Oh yeah,
wow.
got a couple of them.
Holy cow!
We were working with a drone for production with VSU, and we ended up winning an Emmy for that. This was before you had stabilized video. Everybody wants to see my video that we won the Emmy for, and I'm
Sure.
embarrassed to show them.
Yeah,
it's an
'cause it doesn't
awesome
look like it
video.
does today.
But when you see the aerial stuff, I remember Jesse, the producer, very talented guy, by the way, and he says, I don't care about stabilizing or color grading. I'm just nobody's seen this
Right,
perspective
right,
before.
right.
But today you would look at it probably and go, oh, yikes.
Right.
Pretty
Yeah.
raw.
And it changes so quickly too.
Yeah.
I mean, every day they're coming out with better and better cameras. They're talking about with the new Avata 2 that it'll have the same camera sensor
Crazy.
as these little cameras we're using for the side shots. So that's really neat. So tell me, you kind of explained before, but are you still working with the FAA on this regulations and things like that, helping
No,
to guide that?
that the sun has set on that one.
Okay.
I left the ASTM. That's where I was doing that work, was through the ASTM.
Sure.
And I left the ASTM a number of years ago to basically pass the baton to another crowd with, there's something to be said for fresh thinking. And at
Sure.
some point, I think we reached a point where we were like, okay, we've gone as far as we could go. Let me step down and let someone else step up. And so I don't actually do in the drone world a whole lot with the FAA. Part 107 is Part 107. Now we've got remote ID and
Sure.
obviously trying to get into flight operations over people and beyond visual line of sight. And I
Right.
still
Do you have that that license for the
No,
No, you don't?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't possess that
or
one.
agriculture, any of those other?
No, no,
Yeah, okay.
no. I'm, I mean,
But he does fly the 777, so it's like it's really nothing you
Yeah.
couldn't do. I want to, when you were talking about flying before and kind of, having this desire to kind of help, get the safety thing. Have you ever run into a situation seeing a drone while
Oh,
you've been
yeah.
flying the big birds?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Tampa, Florida. I was flying in an Airbus many years ago, and we were on the downwind, landing north in Tampa, and I looked out the window to the right, on the right side of my co-pilot, and I went, "Oh God, look at that! There's a drone," and it was a little white drone, plastic.
Probably a Phantom or?
Well, yeah,
it's hard to
that's
tell.
what I'd say, but he was
Yeah.
at 4,000 feet.
Oh my!
And so,
Yeah.
that's how high we were. He was
Sure.
just below us.
I
Maybe
was
a couple hundred feet.
watching a video on YouTube right now about one of the things it's not the remote pilot sensors, but other sensors that they have that they can see
Yeah.
drones in their places, and they see drones all the time at 1,600 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what is going on? As a matter of fact, one of the things that you tell me what you think of this. Some of the fines were handed out in the last couple of major things we've seen on TV, like the playoff game.
Yeah.
That guy got a $500 fine. Now, I think that's too low. I really do. I think if you want to stop this bad behavior, you got to make people understand this is serious business. Do you not believe that? I mean, that's my thought.
Yeah, so I do a fair amount, or I did do a fair amount of work with the local Flight Standards District office here in Richmond, helping them, shall we say, course correct wayward drone pilots.
Sure.
Because they have a pretty good, a big picture view of the drone world, or at least they used to anyhow. Can't speak for them today.
Sure.
But and they would rather have one of their compatriots, meaning like if you had done something a little questionable, rather than the FAA call you up and get involved, they would call me and say, "Hey, would you go talk to this guy and see if maybe we can get a little education going so we don't have to get involved?"
Sure.
Because if we get involved, it probably isn't going to be in his best interest or her best interest. So I did a little bit of work in that way. I will say that the FAA today still has, I think, a more kindler, gentler FAA personality than in a bygone era, and there's still a little more of what they call a compliance mindset rather than a legislative, regulatory mindset, if you will. So I'm with you 100% when we see some flagrant, no kidding violation, and we all know we can all see them on influencers online.
If they're not either going to jail, which or really pay some serious money, they'll stop, and other people will stop if they see what could happen. I think the guy in Baltimore claimed that he didn't know. He didn't know. He wasn't aware of the rules. He just bought it, pulled it out of the box, and ended up over there. But
how about the guy in Philly? You ever watch him?
yeah, I think the one in Cincinnati was the guy who dropped the leaflets. But the guy in Philly, I'm not sure. Tell me about that.
We'll have to talk about that guy. I'll show you. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a trip.
Has he done bad things?
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, he's pretty. But the thing is Gary, I don't know if you know this or not, but many years ago, the FAA brought some action against a number of drone pilots when there was no law.
Oh, really?
They just kind of said, "Hey, you can't do what you're doing,"
And nobody really knew then because there wasn't.
Right, and so the FAA just kind of said, and they made up they had their policies, which is what they were, that they would cite, but they weren't policies for Americans. They were policies for FAA employees, if you will.
Interesting.
And so, anyhow, a number of these people got together and basically sued the FAA, for lack of a better term. And the FAA was found to be negligent, and basically judgment for the people of the United States who still are innocent until proven guilty. So basically they told the FAA just because some guy posted aerial footage on a YouTube channel that got monetized didn't mean he flew the drone.
Right.
So how can you say he
can't prove it?
Right, you can't prove it. So that's the bottom line.
It's similar to the reason that I ended up in your class. I didn't know much about it. I used it as, I did AV, and I was at an AV job outdoors. I took my drone, put it up, shot the area that I was doing the event, posted that. I got a call from the FAA, wonderful woman, I can't remember her name, But she was as sweet as she could be. She really was. And she said, look, Gary, what you did, she said, I even saw you were near people, but you flew around. You seemed to take some precaution that was necessary, but you used it commercially. And you can't use it commercially unless you've got the 107. And so I said, okay, I'll take care of this. And I enrolled in your class. I got my 107. I called her back one day. I still had her number. And she says, thank you so much. We'll just kind of push this off our desk. And, they were very, very kind. And I would hope they would be to anybody that didn't know. But today, especially with the new certification that the FAA has done for all droners, novice, hobbyists, whatever, have got to have this. So I want to ask you, what do you see as the future for the world of drones?
Hey, great question, man. So here's what I've seen. And what I've seen is, at first it started out that, a guy had a drone and everybody was enamored by it.
Sure.
And so everybody had to hire the guy that had a drone because we needed that footage, right? Now, fast forward a few years, and well, for crying out loud, everybody's got a drone now.
It's like DJ.
and a drone has a camera, so we're all professional photographers, we're all professional filmmakers, and so now what I see is the drone world splitting off from into different highly specialized areas. For one, mapping, photogrammetry stuff, search and rescue with first responder type operations. There's actually a group that I was involved with through the Sonoran Desert Institute. We were training them. They actually go out after a missing person after they've given up, looking for them, and they go out and they are looking for fragments of bone, fingernails, and they
using the drone to do it.
Absolutely, using the drone, and they have actually found missing people out in Southern California years after the fact.
Wow!
But they didn't give up, and they went out. So there's those very niche type specialties, and then it segues off of that from, hey, anybody can fly a drone. Supposedly, it depends on how jiggy you want to get with it, to what skill level it takes. But the bottom line is, it's become commoditized. Flying a drone is nothing more than a commodity. What you do with the data that the drone captures becomes the real future, I think. So for the drone pilot who actually, in our world, who is a filmmaker and an editor and a storyteller and knows how to put all these things together, you have a tremendous ability to leverage this technology. In the world of, let's say, photogrammetry, and you go out to the Grape Growers Association in Charlottesville, and I've been out there many years ago, and all these guys go, well, I have a drone, I just don't know what the information it's given me is telling me what to do. I just want to know, do I need to put more water here, or more fertilizer here, or less there? That's what I want to know. Yeah. And that, to me, becomes one of the specialty areas where, this is becoming more of a tool for different walks. And the more you are involved in how to use the tool and the data the tool collects is where you'll...
Yeah, seeing things like the thermal and spectra, which you can read that soil temperatures and moisture and that kind of thing. Yeah, all that stuff is growing too. And I went out with a guy not too long ago and did just some weeding, seeding with one of those Agra.
Oh yeah, the Agra
30.
Yeah.
Incredible. That thing is huge.
Wild,
makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of noise. But anyway, first of all, before we go, I want you to tell the audience, if you're teaching 107, how do you get that? Because I know plenty of pilots who are still looking for the 107. How do they get in touch with you? How can they get into your school? And I can tell you right now, if you've ever tried to do this stuff online, it doesn't compare with having Scott in a room where you can ask questions and really work back and forth. It's a totally different learning experience, because I tried the other one too, just for fun, especially when I was getting ready to do my recurrent. I thought I had to know everything again.
Yeah.
It's not quite that tough. I studied again, but using the online. But it was, again, nothing like you. So tell us about how to get in touch with your company and everything.
I appreciate the opportunity to plug.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
At thedroneflightschool.com, and we're online. As Gary said, I do this teaching in person, and I feel very strongly about doing it in person as opposed to just a one-way watch a video and you can't ask any questions. There's no synergies between the people online. I have experimented a little bit with doing it via Zoom. It doesn't exactly play out as well in real life as it does in your mind. And to that end, I am in the process, sometime before this year's over, we'll have an online version of my class.
Nice.
And then ideally speaking, a community from which we can do things of this nature relative to Part 107, so that you don't feel like all you're doing is just watching a video.
Right.
But for the time being, it's just in person, thedroneflightschool.com.
And we'll put that in the comments below as well as on the screen. But gosh, that's so great. And I look forward to having you again. I'll tell you why. I want to call you sometimes like I've done before. And I will tell you that I've called Scott strange times and don't know where in the country he might be, but he's always returned my call. And I had a question about the small drone, the mini. If I put props on it, put a battery in it, was it still legal to go over people? And this was before the 107 rules changed a little bit. But you told me no, and you were like, no, Gary, that's now over 149 or 249, and that would be outside of that. And I listened to him, and I think, that's it. I won't be doing that flight.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate that kind of input, and that's something Scott's given me in the past. And we're going to have you back to answer questions, if you even do it by Zoom.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It would be great to have somebody with your
Happy to
knowledge
help.
and really someone who's an advocate for the safety of droning. So awesome. Listen, thank you so much for being a part of this. We're going to run right now to do, we didn't do any news stories today, but this is the best news we could ever tell. And we're going to have Prax Tips. Prax is not here. He's in Florida and having a little vacation time, but he's going to phone in the Prax Tips this week. So here's Prax Tips.
Hey, this is Prax with IrepairMD. Today I'm just going to give you a quick preview of the new LCD guard. This is for the the Phantom 4 Pro controller. As you notice, this is made out of glass. And this LCD is very expensive and it's built in. This is for the Phantom 4 Pro Plus. I developed this. This is still in beta test right now. This is a clamshell with a hood built in. So what you do is you pretty much snap this onto the back. See right here? Just press it to place. There you go, it's all secure. So when you need to rest it, you can just rest it this way. Okay, and when you need to use it, open it up, pull the flap, and now you have a hood. See? So this hood is ideal for when you need to use when it's bright sunlight. And this is just a beta, but if you guys pay close attention the next few weeks, I will start launching this. This is just a beta test right here, and this should snap in. And when you want to put it away, you don't have to take the hood off. You just unlock it, fold in like this, and now you can store this.
All right, we're back. Hey, thanks, Brack, for phoning that one in for us. And just want to say thank you so much to Captain Scott Strimple, a guy who I'm just lucky to know. It's really amazing. We're doing this show to talk about the community, and it is amazing how some of the great drone connections are right here.
Here. Absolutely.
Charlie Wood with Skydio, he's one of their engineers. He's from Richmond.
Yeah.
And with a lot of good people that have really put a lot of effort and time into making this thing more than just a toy sport. It's really a fine, for some of us, a job. I'm working it now as a full-time job. So listen, thanks again. Guys, thanks for joining us here on Points of Interest, and fly safe.